Miyamoto Musashi was a famous samurai warrior in the feudal era of Japan. He was the famous author of the Book of the Five Rings. He is also well known for writing a list with the rules of life 2 weeks before he died. As a good Eastern warrior, for Miyamoto, the fight was much more than a fight. The samurai gave enormous value to personal growth. This was precisely the means to becoming a good fighter. The rules of Miyamoto's life have survived the test of time, like a true classic. They reflect the wisdom of those who have lived with courage and devoted to noble causes. We've synthesized these precepts into 10 rules, which we will now share with you. Rule number 1. Acceptance. Number 1 in Miyamoto's rules of life is to accept life just as it is. Acceptance does not mean resignation, but humility. Life is what it is, and each of us must have an attitude of learning from circumstances that we didn't choose but have to live with anyway. The consequence of not accepting reality is permanent suffering. This leads to an inner battle that we will always lose. Acceptance, on the other hand, means we will learn from each situation. Rule number 2. Think little about yourself and a lot about others. A person who thinks too much about themselves ends up getting confused. They wall themselves off from the world and feed their insecurities. Instead of thinking about yourself, it's okay to let yourself just be. True happiness is in serving others. There's nothing that compares to the satisfaction of doing good. A person who is generous shows themselves to be powerful too. In the end, this is what allows them to appreciate themselves. Rule number 3. Learn to let go of desire. Desire, understood as a longing for what one does not have, only brings eternal dissatisfaction. Having things is like a bottomless barrel. The more you have, the more you want, and each time it's harder to be satisfied. Miyamoto, like many Eastern thinkers, fought to eradicate desire. A person who longs is frustrated. Real power is in the ability to go without, to give up. A person who needs little, with little, is happy. Rule number 4. Don't make room for guilt. Guilt is the root of much suffering. The worst thing of all is that it is useless. This is what Miyamoto says in his rules of life. He insists that we should not see error as a condemnation, but rather as our nature. Every action we do teaches us something. It also changes us in some way. If a person did something wrong, he taught us a lesson. That's why we shouldn't dismiss anything we go through. The important thing is to learn from it and become wiser. Rule number 5. No more complaints or resentment. Complaints only open the door to bad energy and torment the people around you. It doesn't make any sense because instead of moving you to action, it ends up paralyzing you. According to Miyamoto's rules of life, complaints and resentment poison a person from the inside out. They are useless. Instead, they kill any positive feelings that might be in there too. Rule number 6. Let go of things you do not need. Objects influence our emotions and our way of seeing life. If we get too attached to them, they end up controlling us. They make our conscience less free. This applies especially to things that we no longer need, but keep anyway. In the end, they make us more insecure, rigid people. That's why the rules of life teach us to get rid of useless things. Rule number 7. Do not blindly follow the beliefs of others. This piece of wisdom is about trusting yourself. Trust in your own common sense. Respect your own convictions and your own values, otherwise you'll be easy to manipulate. Nobody needs to be told what is good or what is bad. We all have the ability to decide this for ourselves. Following blindly means you will inevitably betray yourself. Rule number 8. Always keep your honor. Honor is a word that we've practically forgotten. It has to do with your self-love, with not allowing yourself to fall into behaviors that are in dissonance with your values. With not allowing yourself to fall into behaviors that are in dissonance with your values. Your beliefs are like a kind of compass, and when you respect them despite temptation, you will feel pride. Honor is the most precious thing a person has. An honorable person inspires respect and consideration. They attract the goodwill and consideration of others, even enemies. This is how honor gives value to life. Rule number 9. Love must not be invaded by attachment. Emotions in general are impulsive responses. If there's a reason behind them, they become feelings, and feelings are deeper and more weighty, associated with values and not with needs. Love is an extraordinary feeling. However, sometimes what we call love may actually be a blind, passing emotion. This happens when what inspires love is actually attachment. Here, it hurts rather than helps. Rule number 10. Do not be afraid of death. It is a fact. We are mortal. Life ends, and this is a reality. We must not fear our own death or that of the beings we love. We overcome fear of death, living life intensely. Miyamoto's rules of life have survived the test of time because of the great wisdom that they hold, and also because everything they inspire. They call for realism, humility, and inner peace. They call for us to focus on the essence of life and not on the trivial.